Welcome one and all back to another day here at the Damage Report with me, John Iadarola, and joining us once again, reporting from Texas, which will be the source of quite a few of our stories today. Yasmin Khan, welcome back to the Damage Report.
Hi, happy to be back. Happy
Glad to
talk
have you
about
here.
Texas, always.
Yeah, what is going on with your state? But before the show, just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes look, everybody. We were talking about Ted Cruz and how there might be cause for hope or optimism. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that at some point today, because the Texas Senate race will be the focus of one of our stories. We will eventually get to that. Also, not only it might have a new senator, it might be a new country. We're going to be talking about Texas seceding, which I hear they can do. And I don't like to fact check, so I'm just going to run with that. They can just leave if they want to. So we'll be discussing that, as well as Joe Biden releasing a pretty devastating and funny ad targeting Donald Trump's mental state, his cognitive capacity. That's not going to get under Trump's skin or anything. And then a whole lot more besides. That's for the first hour. So thank you everybody watching live, as well as those listening on the podcast. As always, thank you if you are listening on the podcast. Head over to iTunes to rate and review. This is very helpful. In the aftermath, we're going to be talking about not only Lauren Boebert being roasted by one of her Republican colleagues. Can't wait to see the fallout from that. Whether Donald Trump deserves the aura, I guess, that he has gained on the right of being sort of put to lead the Republican Party like Jesus. We're going to be once again debating that, and then touching base with a little bit of what MAGA thinks about a number of different topics. Michael Shore has done some great on the ground reporting, and we're going to be responding in just a little bit. But with all that said, if you're on a platform where you can hit the like button, feel free to do that. If you're not, construct your own DIY like button and then start clicking that. And with all that said, Yaz, you ready to do this thing?
I'm ready to do this thing.
Okay, then let's do it. Let's go.
The trends here may be changing because President Trump has been leading national poll after national poll over President Biden for the last couple of weeks, but not in this one.
No, not in this one, Doocy. The trends are changing, and some recent polls do have a little bit of good news for Donald Trump, but also just clobbers him with a 1-2 punch of bad news across a number of different areas. And not only punches, there's a kidney punch in there too, so stay tuned for that. But I'm gonna break it down for you. Much of this information that we'll be discussing comes out of the latest Quinnipiac poll, which is a very reputable pollster that does a lot of tracking. So we not only have sort of like a snapshot of what's going on in this race, but we can compare it to where we've been, and that's where some of the most fascinating information comes. We're gonna start off with the first punch. Trump has fallen behind Joe Biden in national polling, at least as of this point amongst registered voters. Joe Biden is now up by 6 points, 50 to 44. Back in December, in the same poll, he had a 1-point lead. And the thing is, obviously, there's always a bit of a gap between what registered voter polling can tell us versus likely voter polling can tell us. Maybe if you're up by 1 point in registered voters, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're leading. But if you can grow that by 5 points in 1 month, then that is significant. And it makes you wonder, where is this movement coming from? And that is maybe my favorite part of this. So this is punch number 2 to Donald Trump. Joe Biden is getting stronger among women voters in this poll, leading his predecessor 58 to 36. Now, back in December, he was already leading amongst women 53 to 41, but that is that's like a 10-point swing inside of a month, which begs the question, why? Why would so much movement happen in this one demographic group in just a month? Well, I don't know for sure, but I do know what happened in that month, and that is the E. Jean Carroll verdict came out. And so it might be that E. Jean Carroll has costed Donald Trump not just $83.3 million, but maybe some swing states, maybe the election. I want to go to you guys. What do you think about these polling results?
Yeah, I mean, it's very promising, of course. I wonder about your theory, though, that it's coming from the E. Jean Carroll defamation case, because it was already ruled, I think it was last year, that he did, sexually assault E. Jean Carroll. That was from last year. So what the verdict that we just got here was that he kept defaming her after the result of that previous one. So I feel like, it should have swung the other way a long time ago, but maybe this most recent trial and the $83 million fine or penalty, maybe that's just bringing it all back up into the forefront. And especially now in 2024, more people are starting to pay attention to these two candidates because the election is closer. So last year, 2023, who cares what happened in 2023? But this is 2024. It's very different. We're in an election year now, so things are going to get a little bit heavier.
Yeah, honestly, who cares about last year? Like, there was no real news. We were just, treading water, but no, I'm kidding. Yes, I do think that we've expected that people would start paying more attention. It is possible that that's what it is. I think the $83.3 million makes it way more real.
Oh yeah.
Like, you can debate, I guess, I don't know why you would, but you could debate, well, they say that he did this thing, but like, he $83.3 million did that thing. And that, I think, breaks through. That is a headline for you. But I would like to throw out one other possibility. And I know nobody wants me to bring up this topic. I mean, they've been attacking Taylor Swift a lot for like a good solid week and a half now. Yeah. There's a lot of women who are Swifties. Is it possible that that's contributing to this? Maybe it's a two-hander. Maybe it's Jean Carroll and Taylor Swift teaming up like the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of things. And we've seen that happen, over the course of, several elections that we've covered here on the show. We see a lot of little things add up to create big results, right? Because you never know what one thing is going to get this one voter to switch their vote from one candidate to the other. And sometimes it is something as inconsequential as, you know what, he's saying a lot of things about Taylor Swift and I don't like that. What kind of person would say these kind of things about someone like that? And then they say, I'm not going to vote for him. Everybody has their own triggers, and it's kind of unpredictable to determine what it's going to be for any one person.
100%. Well, it isn't just women that are contributing to this newfound strength for Joe Biden. Biden also leads Trump among independents 52-40. So that's your second punch right there. And the expectation is that, like, we can look at the Jean Carroll verdict and think that that might hurt him amongst some groups, particularly women. That would seem to make sense. But the idea is that among independents, all of this legal stuff is going to hurt him. All of the people who are like, I don't really have a super strong identification with either of the parties or either of the candidates, but like, one guy is just constantly having bad legal news come out. Do I really want to get back into that? That's an as yet not thoroughly tested hypothesis, but it's one of the going hypotheses for this election. And right now he's got a 12-point lead. I mean, obviously Biden would like to see that higher. And I want to be fair. I want to acknowledge where Trump has strength while acknowledging where men apparently have weakness, because men backed Trump 53-42, marginally more, slightly more than they did back in December. So the fact that he has grown his strength among men after the $83.3 million verdict says a lot. I don't think any of it is good about men, but that's what's out there. And before you comment, I also want to throw out the kidney punch, because the polling doesn't look good for Donald Trump, but the polling is against Biden. That election is still a long way away. It's a little bit abstract, but what's not abstract is the race he has going on right now with Nikki Haley. And if you're wondering if she saw the recent polling, she did actually, particularly this one. The polling shows that while Trump is trailing Biden by a good bit, Nikki Haley is beating Biden by 5 points in a possible matchup. So now I want you to consider both of those simultaneously. Biden is up 6 points over Trump and down 5 to Nikki Haley. I mean, the combination of those two imply that Nikki Haley is a far that's an 11-point swing. That's everything in an election doesn't generate an 11-point swing, but that's what we see right now between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. She posted a tweet about this, showing the actual poll, saying a new Quinnipiac poll confirms it again in a head-to-head matchup. I beat Joe Biden and Republicans take back the White House. Donald Trump loses big and we end up with President Harris. I love that that's just implying Biden will die. A little bit morbid for a tweet, but is she wrong? I mean, I see this and I think, like, thank God Nikki Haley's probably not going to be the candidate, because she would almost certainly beat Biden. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is probably one of the pitfalls of having a two-party system, because I think in any other election, Nikki Haley is not really a strong political candidate, especially not for president. So I think what's happening here is neither of the front runners for either party is really likable right now. I think that nobody likes Trump. I think the Republicans are having a hard time getting away from Trump, and maybe they're looking to the next best thing, and that's Nikki Haley, even though she, as a candidate herself, is really not that strong or that great. And Joe Biden, he has a lot of dissension within his own party, So he has a lot of people who are upset with him because he hasn't fulfilled some promises. He hasn't taken some stances that are really popular within his base right now. I am no political strategist, and I'm not a political consultant or anything like that. But I think if Biden really wants to be reelected in November, I think it would be wise for him to focus a little less on swinging Republican voters to his side and more on keeping the voters who voted for him in 2020.
I think that's a good strategy, but I would also say don't be so hard on yourself. The main difference between you and a political consultant or strategist is that you haven't yet put in, capitalized letters, political consultant or strategist in your Twitter bio.
Should I do
the
that?
only difference. They don't go to like a doctoral program usually for that. It's just a thing they say.
It's a branding thing. All right, I'll do better at my personal branding.
Sure. There are some people obviously that do know what they're talking about, particularly in individual states, but they're not angels or whatever. They don't have divine knowledge. Now, we do want to talk about a few other findings in this before we get to more fun. So that's all the polling we've been talking about is in a two-way race, but we don't theoretically have a two-way race. We have third-party candidates. So if you did that race with all of these independent third-party candidates, then Biden would be at 39%. Donald Trump would be at 37%. RFK Jr. would be at 14%. Cornel West at 3%, and Jill Stein at 2%. So Biden still leads in that case. But obviously, all of this depends on what effect these would have on individual states, how it throws into potential chaos the electoral college vote distribution. So it still looks good for Biden if you just look at the big picture, but I don't know exactly what that would mean once it's filtered through the fact that we don't really have a democracy in America. So bear that in mind. And I would also like to throw out that he's not getting very good marks on certain topics that Donald Trump could try to hit him on, like the economy. He's not polling really any better in that. And on immigration, they trust Donald Trump more. And I am going to try to be understanding of the American people in that usually when polling results come out like this, I don't think Biden's doing a good job. I trust Trump more. What that means is I think it's a problem. Biden's in charge right now, Trump's not. Because if you actually think that Trump is going to help you, I will remind you what state the economy was in at the close of the Trump years. And the only effect that he truly individually had on the economy was massive tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. And on immigration, sure, if you like the idea of moats stocked with alligators and people with machine guns manning sentry posts at the border, then sure, you should trust him more. But remember, there was still very high level of migration into America under Trump. They always want to forget that. Him being in charge doesn't suddenly stop that from happening. It just means that their attempts to curtail it are necessarily more barbaric, and we might end up with concentration camps. So what do you think about those? Some of the issue areas Biden is continuing to have some trouble.
Yeah, so I think that this is, again, one of the pitfalls, not only of the two-party system, but of our general electoral process, right? The fact that you have a president who can serve for 4 years and then he's up for re-election. And so the last year of his first term is really spent in campaigning for his next term so he can do more in the next 4 years. And it's just exactly like what you said, right? If Joe Biden is the one who's in charge right now and something's happening that somebody doesn't like, then they're going to blame it on that guy, which is funny because, when their guy is in charge, they don't seem to do the same thing. And both sides are probably guilty of behaving that way. As far as the border issue, for example, goes, I live in a border state. Whenever I talk to real, actual people who are very concerned about immigration and they're the most concerned about the border, these people don't have any direct experience with the border or with immigrants, really, right? In fact, they're really very isolated from the things that they seem the most concerned about. So they're getting all of these fear-based talking points about immigrants and the border from Fox News. And yes, all these people are very avid Fox News viewers. And I realize that this is anecdotal, but I think, in talking to real people, not on social media, it's really the best way to get an idea of what the voting public is actually thinking and feeling, maybe even more so than polls, even though I realize it's hard to do that on a large scale. So we know that they're using things like the economy and immigration to push voters to vote for Trump or just to vote for the other guy who is not Joe Biden. And I was just reading something this morning. There was a congressman from Texas, a Republican congressman, and he said that, of course, they're not going to do anything to help the situation at the border while Joe Biden is in office, because why would they do anything that would make him look good? Why would they want to do anything that Joe Biden could then take credit for, which would then in turn help his reelection chances? So again, we're seeing a problem with the system that we have where we really are at a standstill because neither party wants to make the other party look good, because it's not about governing America, it's about winning elections. And that's the electoral process that we have in this country.
100%. Yeah. Look, I think the numbers are going up with Republicans prioritizing this, including, as you say, people who they're nowhere near the border. The border doesn't affect them. Migrants don't affect them whatsoever, because the right is focusing on it to the exclusion of virtually every other topic. Which, hey, maybe that signals that they've gotten that they should back off of the whole woke thing being the only thing they talk about in politics. But they also, as you said, don't want to solve the problem, and they're being super transparent about why. And there is a big disconnect between what they are telling their voters about how they are in the next 5 minutes probably going to be raped and murdered by a migrant, and then saying, but I don't want to do anything about it because that'll help Biden. Those comments need to be put into ads and they need to be sent out there because it's going to make them look so bad. You cannot, on the one hand, claim that something is this massive crisis and then the other hand say that you're not going to solve it purely for political reasons. People are going to be angry about that. And justifiably so. Also, I think that your strategy of talking to people in real life is interesting. I have considered it from time to time, but I'm going to say no. I don't want to do that. That seems like
it's scary. Sometimes it's scary out there,
Yeah, I know. I'll leave it to Michael Shore. He can go talk to people in the real world. I'm going to stay on the internet. Anyway, with that said, I want to turn to a little bit of fun. Don't worry, we'll be following the polls as the election goes on. You know how much I love them. With that said, Joe Biden said that he was moving into a more aggressive phase of his campaign, and that very much appears to be the case because look at this ad that he rolled out on Truth Social.
Donald Trump is truly confused.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people. They don't want to talk about that.
He didn't just get me confused. He mentioned it over and over and over again. Yeah. He's not what he was in 2016. He has declined. That's a fact.
I mean, we won last time. We won 50 states, right?
This is not Donald Trump of 2016, guys.
What? What is?
If he's off the teleprompter, he can barely keep a cogent thought. I mean, that's just fact.
We are an institute and a powerful death penalty. We will put this on.
I think he's declining.
I stumbled and mumbled purposely.
I do speak in long, complex sentences, and I have a lot of material in each sentence.
You have voter ID to buy a loaf of bread. You have ID to buy a loaf of bread.
Have you noticed? He's a little confused these days.
A person close to Trump actually says that he's rattled by Biden's efforts to get under his skin.
That's amazing. Look, it's on Truth Social. The idea there is you go to the enemy's territory and you fight them where they should be strongest, which probably has attached to it the reality that not a lot of people are going to buy what they see. After all, like there were Trump fans at every one of those events where he had all those weird short circuits and weird failings and all that. And they seem fine with him, but I like it. I want them to be more aggressive. So for the last couple of years, almost all the focus has been on how Joe Biden is slowed down and Joe Biden has gaffes and things like that, which is totally true. That is the case. But if that is going to be a valid topic for this election to potentially hinge on, well, then at least make sure that people know that it's kind of a wash on the mental state of these two guys. If they're gonna be the candidates, it's not like one of them is a super well put together like TED talker or something and the other has mush for brains. They both have failings. They both have trouble expressing themselves. And so I like that they're at least engaging in that fight. What do you think?
John, can you imagine what an actual Donald Trump TED Talk would be like? Like, I know you like to do your Donald Trump impression, but I would love to hear a Donald Trump TED Talk. But, like the ad is fun, and it's on Truth Social. So he is trying to like hit Trump where his audience is, where it can potentially hurt him, or at least hurt his ego the most, right? And it seems to be working if it's getting under Trump's skin, allegedly. That's what is being reported, at least. I think it is important to point out that these Trump people, that if you're gonna use something like Joe Biden's mental decline or his age as a strike against him, it's really hypocritical to do that, because Donald Trump has never been known, at least not in recent years, for his mental acuity, right? We all remember his stellar IQ test, which was really just like a dementia test that he passed with flying colors, and he was so excited about that. And that was embarrassing for him, frankly, that he was so excited about it. But his supporters still, they're so enamored with him that they're like, yeah, he's great. Look, he's mentally acute. He has the highest IQ out of all of us. And it's like, he doesn't, right? So I think it would be best, easier for me, more tolerable for me to make it from now till November if we just, as he said, just leave it as a wash, just move on from that point. This is where we are in America. It's not great, that these are our two candidates, but this is where we are.
Yeah, look, I don't want this to be a big focus of the election or anything like that. And remember, this is an ad placed on Truth Social. This is not national, like it's gonna be leading off, hey, I'm watching Morning Joe, and all of a sudden Dark Brandon's there. It's not that sort of thing. But I want them to fight. I want them to, this is acknowledging that they get that that's a way that they are being attacked. And the fact that they're responding shows that they're at least following what's going on. I at least want that. I want a vigorously, like pursued campaign. And up until very recently, we hadn't had that. Now that can't be the only thing. You should be vigorous in terms of pushing an actual policy agenda as well. So I do want to see more of that. I do want to see them responding more to what many of their voters see as potential failings. As you said earlier in the show, promises that you haven't made good on. At the very least, promise again to do it. I won't necessarily trust you, but it would be nice at least. And then, we see like the State Department talking about how they're considering ways to acknowledge the Palestinian state, shows that maybe they're seeing the criticism that they're getting in that area. At least they're paying attention, and maybe that's the start of more. With that said, do you have a quick final comment?
No, I was just going to say, I would hope that they're paying attention, because the rhetoric is so strong, and I just got a text message yesterday from the Joe Biden campaign asking, Yasmin, what can we say to get you to donate more money? And I was like, are you joking? You know what you can say, and you're not saying it. So hopefully they are just, paying attention to the people who are actually likely to vote for them, and, trying to keep those people or engage those people.
Yeah. I assume it's one word, two parts, maybe?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, you added on a second word, but I get where you're going. Okay, let's see. That's a challenge out to the Biden administration. Feel free to do that. And with that, we're gonna take our first break. Don't go anywhere. More after this. By the way, I wonder if maybe we should have done an update. Well, nobody saw the first clip, so maybe we shouldn't have. But Robert Garcia, representative, was reminding everyone that Donald Trump wanted alligators at the border. Since he did that, multiple Republicans have said that they still want that. Like I said in the clip yesterday, it's good that he's reminding reasonable people that that's what the right wants. But at the same time, right wingers absolutely love that stuff, and they are proving me right. Lauren Boebert is saying that she would sign up for that legislation, for there to be alligators at the border.
Lauren Boebert has other things that she needs to be worried about right now. She's not going to be in office for very long. That's what
probably not. But I'm loving that, as like a devout Christian woman, she's fitting in a little bit more of how comfortable she is with the idea of migrant children being literally eaten by alligators.
It's all about, compartmentalizing your Christianity with your wanting to kill people with alligators.
100%. Those are the two main parts of the Republican mind. An even split. Anyway, no, I can imagine that meme of like the guy not knowing what button to press. It's Christianity and wanting children to be eaten by alligators. Anyway, okay, let's jump to some of your comments and see what's going on. Ruby Dooby Doo Dragon, member for 8 months over on YouTube, says, I was granted full custody of my daughter today, and I've been a member 8 months. Longtime lurker first, LOL. Today is a good day. That's awesome news. Great news for you. Thank you for being here. Alex, member for 4 months, says, "Hey John, nice shirt, different, and your hair looks good. Thank you, I appreciate that."
Was that my mom who left that comment?
It might be your mom, actually. Thank you. Yeah, it's his mom. Also, check out Peter Zehan. According to him, Trump will lose and GOP will fragment in 24. I will have to see. I have a lot of different thoughts about that myself. I don't know about the fragmentation, but we will see. Iryman gifted a sub over on Twitch. Very nice of you. Brandy Lou 2 gifted 5 subs over on Twitch. Thank you as well. Let's see. Ruby Doo Dragon, in addition to that comment, also gifted 5 memberships over on YouTube. How nice of you. Thank you for doing that. Okay, let's see. Over on the members' comments, Pharaoh Blue Blazer Dragon says, "Maybe I'm whistling past the graveyard here, but I am not sold that Haley is a strong finals candidate. She might be a big fish in a Nazi pond, but as a response to the Civil War question pointed out, she ain't ready for prime time." Well, if you liked her comments about the Civil War, you should listen to her comments kind of still about the Civil War, but about secession anyway. That's coming up in just a little bit. I Am Sock says, "Up by 6 for a Democrat is pretty much a coin flip." Yes, I would say that certainly being up by 6 in the registered voters is probably at best a coin flip, considering the disconnect between what people actually want and what the Electoral College gives them. But a coin flip is better than what we had last month, which was not a coin flip. It was worse than that. Okay, English teacher 1984, the Grammar Dragon says, "I don't care for him, but Gavin Newsom would run away with the election. I don't understand the Dems." That's entirely possible. I think that you could probably input quite a few other Democrats and they would be doing better. It's like we said on the show yesterday, like all of this campaign apparatus, all of this money and everything, and the Republicans have chosen the guy that's least likely to win, and the Democrats have chosen the guy least likely to win. Hell of a job that the parties are doing. Okay, Kedge Dragon, member for 9 months on YouTube, says, "Alligators didn't help keep immigrants out of Florida. Why would it work in Texas?" It's crazy that to this day in Florida, alligators are just rampaging through the streets. An elderly woman was actually drowned by an alligator not long ago. How is that still happening on a regular basis?
Florida is a crazy place, and I go to Florida so often, and it's like you
hold on,
hear about it.
Pause. Sorry, hard out.
Yeah.
Very briefly, we were talking about how Florida is bananas with the alligators. What were you saying, Yas?
I was just saying, I live in Texas and it's crazy over here, but you hear, things about Florida in the news all the time, but then you go to Florida and you're like, oh, it is a little crazy over here. So it's not the news exaggerated. It really is it's a strange place.
I don't get it. Like, California has like the bear on our flag, but if bears were like pulling people off the streets of Culver City into alleys or something, we'd do something about it.
Well, like they're trying to overdevelop the Everglades too. So now the alligators have nowhere to go. So that's a whole other topic.
Into your house, I suppose. Like if giant birds were like pulling people off the streets of Manhattan, there would be nets or something. But no, in Florida, you can still be killed by effectively a dinosaur.
Yes.
Anyway, with that said, let's move into some more news. And in fact, while I don't think it's likely to be one of the driving forces of the election, mental acuity is a thing, and it hits other issues too, including the Eugene Carroll verdict, as you'll see in this clip.
Do you plan to try to use campaign funds or PAC money to try to pay some of the penalties in the New York defamation and fraud cases?
I don't understand what?
Are you thinking of potentially trying to use campaign money to pay some of those penalties that you might incur?
What penalties?
In the New York fraud case, the defamation case.
I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, that's been proven as far as I'm concerned. And actually, we won in the Court of Appeals. You probably saw that. That case has been largely won in the Court of Appeals.
Can somebody help Donald Trump? Because he seems incredibly confused about what's going on. He doesn't understand the questions he's being asked, but much more important than that, the reporter finally got through to him. He doesn't understand the massive financial liability he's currently facing in the Eugene Carroll verdict. He said that he didn't do anything wrong. Okay, I know that you're going to continue to lie and say that. You know exactly what you did. But on the money, you didn't win in the Court of Appeals. That's not a thing that happened. You lost the case and you now owe nearly $100 million. Does he not understand that? Or is this part of like an incredibly dishonest way of trying to pretend it's not happening so his base won't hear about it? I don't know. If it was any other politician, I would assume that it's the latter. But with Donald Trump's mental problems these days, I have to assume it's the former. But Look, cognitive breakdown or not, this is not a defense against it. He's going to have to pay that money. And in fact, he's going to have to pay it very soon. He's going to be appealing that. That's a thing, Trump, that could happen in the future. It didn't already happen, and you didn't already win, buddy. I'm sorry. But even the fact that he's appealing it, I thought that would mean that he wouldn't have to pay until this thing is finally done. That is not actually the case. He will have to pay. So once there's a judgment, which we now have, Trump will have 30 days to pay his damages, though an appellate court will almost certainly allow Trump to forgo paying Carroll directly until the appeal is decided. Trump would have to set the money aside, though, and he can choose to do so in the form of either cash or bond. So it is unlikely that E. Jean Carroll is going to be like filling a money pit with bills and then swimming in it like Scrooge McDuck, but he is going to have to pay. It's going to be not his money anymore until we finally find out what happens. Now, the last time around, remember, this is the second set of money that he has to give to E. Jean Carroll. It's $5 million. He went with cash in that case. Judge Kaplan allowed him to deposit about $5.5 million into a court-managed account. This time around, Trump can ask the judge to let him set Carroll's second, obviously much higher amount of money into a court-managed account. If the judge says no, then he would have to secure Carroll's money through what's called an appeal bond. And that might seem like just a technical legalese thing, but it has significant monetary consequences of its own. So once you do that, taking into account interest and other fees, including the potential need to secure an irrevocable letter of credit from a bank, Trump taking that route could bring his total outlay to $100 million and beyond. He would probably have to provide an extra 10% as collateral, and he would have to pay a premium, bond premium of anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million. So if it goes in that direction, it's not $83.3 million. It's significantly more money. And remember, while he's appealing this, she has talked about the fact that the other defamation that he has done during this trial could be the cause of yet another challenge against him. So this amount could balloon even from there. And I explain all this not only for the audience, but also for Donald Trump, because he apparently doesn't understand the horrible financial and legal situation he finds himself in. Yas, what do you think?
Oh my God, there's so much that I think about all of this. Keep in mind, so we mentioned earlier that he was originally sued for, sexual assault claims against E. Jean Carroll, and he had to pay for that one. I think it was, don't quote me on this, but it was under $10 million, right? Like maybe $5 million, somewhere around there.
$5 million.
Yeah, okay. So it's $5 million. Then he kept defaming her after that court, or after that court decision came out. And so she took him back to court, and now he has to pay out $83 million. And the reason why that sum is so much larger than the original case is because Trump since then has continued to defame E. Jean Carroll, has continued to deny the results of the first trial. And also, he has been bragging in his other court case for bank fraud in New York. He's been bragging about how much money he has. He says, quote, he has billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? And so E. Jean Carroll's lawyers argued successfully, as we saw, that the cash penalty has to be so much bigger than $5 million for him to even feel any kind of penalty. But what we're seeing now is that he has this huge cash penalty that he has to pay to E. Jean Carroll, and it's not even registering in his brain. So, maybe, who knows what it's going to take to actually get something to register with him, for him to understand that he did something wrong and to stop doing the things that he's doing wrong, because we know that he's just going to keep denying the results of either of these cases now.
It's weird because he thus far, and I've been following it every day, I have not seen him yet defame her again. So on some level, he seems to understand, but I don't know, maybe he's been able to go so many decades of his life never facing real consequences that maybe his brain just can't actually wrap around the fact that he lost in this case. Just like with the election, he could not grasp it. And I don't know if that's just sort of like a psychological flaw, or if it is actually the brain rot that he's clearly experiencing.
Yeah, or just like the narcissism or what. But his lawyer, they did say that they're going to appeal the results of the case. Alina Habba said that, and it's a whole thing. I did a video about it on Rebel HQ, and it's gonna come out later today or tomorrow. But they did try to appeal it. But Trump put on Truth Social, I think it was Tuesday, that he's looking for a new legal team to represent him. So I guess Alina Habba maybe won't be a part of that appeal process going forward.
And that's too bad because, with her steering the ship, he could come out of that
Proven
appeals
track
process.
record.
Yeah, I mean, he could come out of it owing $1 billion at that point. Anyway, the money that Donald Trump owes to E. Carroll isn't the only thing that he appears a little bit confused about these days. Do you remember when the photo came out that led to a lot of speculation of his hand? You can see here, and we're gonna focus not on its bizarrely small size, but we're gonna focus on the red dots there. What is the cause of the red dots? Now, there was wild speculation about this. Donald Trump was asked to clarify this, and this is what he said.
How's your hand? Is it better? It looks like it's better now.
My hand?
Yeah, remember what happened the other day?
What was wrong with it?
You didn't see the photos coming out of Trump Tower?
No.
There was, okay.
What was wrong with it?
The other one, yeah. Okay. You don't want to tell us what happened with the hand?
Nothing. Maybe it's AI.
Yeah, maybe it's AI. I mean, look, he showed his hands there. There are no red spots. They look like perfectly normal, albeit T-Rex sized hands on a human body, but there's no marks there. Here's the thing. It wasn't AI. That photo was taken by a photographer. And now look, that doesn't mean that everybody's favorite explanation is true. It doesn't mean that it's proof of syphilis or something like that. Let's not go crazy. He had been slamming his hands on the table at the courtroom. He probably blistered himself. But there's no way that he doesn't know that he did that. If your hand was covered in blood blisters, you're gonna feel that, okay? Particularly with the terrible relationship he has with his wife. It's gonna come up, I'm just gonna say that. So he knows what happened to his hand. Why is he lying about it? Why? Like, I know that like anyone who's accused of doing something illegal is going to claim that the evidence is all AI generated. That's what Roger Stone does. Nobody's claiming you broke the law, man. We're just wondering about your hands. And he just can't be honest about anything. The guy who supposedly tells it like it is can't even tell it like his hand is. What do you think, Yas?
Yeah, it is weird because, like you said, if he was talking about a legal case, we can understand why he would be incentivized to lie or at least deny the allegations against him. But this is something so simple. If I showed up with something on my hand and people were like, "What happened to your hand?" I'd be like, "Oh, I got a blister." Done. That'd be it. It'd be the end of the story. It's so easy to just be like, that's what it is. Sorry, And what's funny about that is he blamed it on AI, but later those same pictures were released and they, like the Trump team, they had photoshopped out the blisters. So which one is AI? Which one is actually AI, Trump?
I love that there is a person whose job it is to remove just the, the evidence of the inevitable decline of the human body as it ages. It bruises easier, it looks rough, and that's
like
his
when
job.
he was first, when all the small hand things first started coming out, he had his team Photoshop his hands in pictures to make them look bigger. Is that?
I don't remember that, but that is just devastating.
I feel like that happened. I feel like that happened like back in 2016 or something.
I didn't think that I could feel secondhand embarrassment for Donald Trump at this point, but that is just the saddest thing. Somebody just don't let him go in public anymore. He can't take it. Anyway, with that said, I want to turn away from hands and to handouts, perhaps, or at least that's how the right would talk about them. We're going to talk about this tax bill, starting with this.
This legislation comes with provisions that, frankly, the people I represent are tired of. And it's provisions that would continue to expand the welfare state, as the Wall Street Journal editorialized about, by expanding the child tax credit in ways that will continue to fund people directly through refundable credits, which we find to be problematic.
That is Republican Chip Roy, right on the verge of the House actually passing an expanded child tax credit bill before it gets sent to the Senate, saying that he doesn't like the idea that part of the bill is that it would help people who need it. People who are, in some cases, desperately poor, who need this assistance. Their kids desperately need this assistance. It deeply bothers Chip Roy that people would benefit in a bill that otherwise does amazing work to improve the situation economically of the wealthiest people and some corporations in this country. The fact that it included a little bit that would go to working people, to poor people, is more than he can abide. Now, while he's mad about that component of it, other Republicans are being absolutely transparent about why they don't want this bill to be passed, including Senator Chuck Grassley, who indicated that he may oppose it because it would make President Biden look good. Who cares what's actually in it? It makes the guy we're running against look good, So screw the American people, screw those with kids who need the assistance. I'm not gonna do it. He says passing a tax bill that makes the president look good, mailing out checks before the election means he could be reelected. And then we won't extend the 2017 tax cuts. There's disagreement by some people on whether or not the bill upsets the strategy for 2025, extending that bill. And all these things are questions that are unanswered. And until something is through the House, I don't think we're gonna pay too much attention to it. Well, he paid enough attention to say that he's not going to do it because Biden is running for reelection, but it could not be more clear. The fact that this bill is, even in a smaller form, slanted towards the wealthy is not enough to placate these monsters. Along the way, it helps some poor people and maybe Biden, so it has to be stopped. And it doesn't even matter anyway. The true prize is the complete extension of the Trump tax cuts, both the personal income tax cuts for wealthy individuals, as well as the absolutely insane corporate tax cut that they received under Donald Trump. That's what he's focused on. Along the way, he's lying about things like the checks being mailed out. The bill does not include any component that would allow for Biden to send out checks in advance of the election. Now, he might be getting confused. He's of advanced age as well. He might be thinking of Donald Trump, who decided to add his name to the stimulus checks as we were prepping for the 2020 election. I guess it was fine for Trump back in 2020, but for Biden, who's not even going to be doing it, it's reason to sink a bill. We're gonna get to what's actually in the bill and why many progressives oppose it for reasons other than like Chip Roy's. But Yaz, what do you make of the politics of this?
Yeah, this is just evidence that the Republican Party is elitist. You and I know that. Everyone watching this show knows that. But taking a public stance against something that's called the child tax credit just proves that the Republicans are reluctant to help out anybody that actually needs help in this country. And a lot of those people are their Republican constituents, right? We know that they're elitist. They want to feel like they're rich and special, and they don't like equity. And I'm not even talking about equality, I'm talking about equity, right? And of course, we know that as much as they say they care about the kids, they do not care about the kids. And that Chuck Grassley quote, that's just like what we were talking about earlier with the congressman from Texas who doesn't want to do anything with the border because it might make Joe Biden look good. This is a big problem. And we know that especially the Republicans are very good at this. Whenever they're not in control of the government, they are incredibly obstructionist and they know how to wield that power.
Yeah, and they can afford to be, because they don't fundamentally care about what happens in politics. All of what they want is locked in, the multiple rounds of tax cuts and everything. They're perfectly happy to do that. The Democrats, some Democrats, still, even when they're in a minority position, feel like, well, shouldn't we be doing kind of like at least a little bit to help people? And we don't see that, unfortunately. Now, thankfully, look, maybe I'm being too critical because while there were people like Chip Roy who said what they said, the bill did ultimately pass. But again, not because of the child tax credit, it passed because of the other stuff. So it does expand refundable child tax credits, although not in the same exact way as the bill a couple of years ago did. It's for low income Americans, and it's even more limited than that form was previously, but it lifts the $1,600 refundable cap on the credit and adjusts it for inflation. It also resurrects some expired parts of the Republican tax cuts for businesses, including research and experimental expenses and small business expenses as well. But the issue is that the benefits that will come from this are almost entirely for the wealthy, which is why of those who voted amongst the Democrats against this, most of them were in the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Rashida Tlaib said the richest 120,000 households would get a larger share of the tax benefits than the bottom 88 million families during the bill's first year, which is insane when you put it in those terms. The poorest 20% of families would receive just $60 on average, while the richest 0.1% get an average of $57,000 in tax benefits. And also in terms of corporations, she talks about how Meta would effectively cut their tax rate from 25% to -2%. And so you can see why a lot of progressives would be angry about this bill. By the way, David Dayen, who's been on the program before, the American Prospect, estimated that in the time period when all the tax credits are actually in place, the business tax changes that we talked about are 5 times more costly than the child tax credit changes. So if you want to get just a rough idea of like the pie with the money being spent, there is a little bit for some people who need the help, and that's good. But that's not what the bill is fundamentally about, and that's not who truly is going to benefit. So it now goes to the Senate, where they're of course going to need 60 votes for it to pass because the filibuster is just now assumed for literally everything. And we know that Chuck Grassley is unlikely to support it. So good luck, I suppose, to the bill. Yas, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think overall, you have to think long term, but we know that that's not really how our government works, right? A lot of it is based on what the next election is going to be. So it's very, very short term thinking that we're seeing, right? So everything is politics. It's all political games as opposed to, actual politics and actual political policy. And something like this, they're just exacerbating an already existent problem that we have a diminishing middle class. We have greater inequality within the country. It's only going to make things worse. And every problem that we have in this country, every major problem stems from that problem, right? All the poverty, all the inequities in the workplace, in houselessness, things like that. All of that can be traced back to wealth inequality in the country. So I think, long term, it's not great.
And we'll see if this improves things or if it even passes. But stay tuned, everyone, for that. We'll be right back with more. Okay, everybody, let's jump into some of your comments. Savage Bear, member for 15 months, says over on YouTube, the movie poster for Beetlejuice 2 was revealed today. Do you think Boebert would be interested in promoting it? Why? Come on. She is never going to be able to live that down. Not even the Republicans are letting her live that down. We'll have more on that in just a little bit. I'm looking at the poster. I'm sure it'll be good. Wait, is he coming back? Is Michael Keaton, he is coming back? They're both coming back? Wait, why is Johnny Depp in this? What is going on here? Anyway, we'll see. I was a big fan of the first movie growing up.
Johnny Depp and it's Winona, right? Winona Ryder?
Is it? I don't know. You go to Yahoo image search and you never know what you're gonna get. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe somebody can clarify that. Okay, thank you for the comment though, Savage Bear. Edward Muertos, a member for 11 months, says, if it wasn't a potential war crime, I'd leave Florida on Kim's doorstep with a note reading, we can't give them the care they need. Jeez, the whole state? That's even worse than what Bugs Bunny wants to do to Florida. Okay, let's see. Oh, I saw this comment. First of all, Jonathan says, looking like Farmer John today. Damn. Paper Dragon says, by the way, John, I know you have a new baby, but if you get a chance, Pal World is a lit game. Yes, one of my gaming buddies is playing Pal World these days. I don't have time. I wish that I could. I barely have time to do a little bit of writing, but maybe someday. Okay, Banana Ham Grenade, member for 12 months, says, we all know that famous Jesus quote, let him without sin cast the first stone at the gator trying to eat that baby. Hurry and cut that razor wire. It was simpler times perhaps back then. A Florida Dragon sent in a super chat saying, it's cold this week relative to other times of the year in Florida. Bring those alligators inside. Do we think that affects, when I came into the studio today, we have sort of like an inner area where you have to go to first. And there was a cat sleeping in it. I guess that it tried to get out of the rain. Are alligators basically Florida cats? I don't know. Okay, let's head over to Twitch comments. Tech Nauseated says, wait, wasn't Chip Roy the one complaining that Republicans don't have anything to run on in future campaigns? That is 100% true. He did say that. He said it was embarrassing. Tech Nauseated, do you have a Boebert gift card? I think that you do. Ashley, can we check that? Because if not, I do like that little bit of added context. So if Tech Nauseated didn't, Tech Nauseated now does. Okay, Jackal Dragon says, this is what amuses me. They're assuming the alligators are gonna stay in place. No, they're gonna get out of the moat or whatever, and they're gonna kill a bunch of people in Texas. Look at the stupid idea. We're not debating putting out. You can't build a moat. We don't live in a castle. We're supposed to live in a modern democracy. As cool as living in a castle would be. Okay, Punk Jazz Dragons has been with us for 43 months over on Twitch. Thank you. Hold on, who put the comment, Pal World is baby approved in my comments? I don't think that she would understand, unfortunately. Catherine O'Hara is coming back to Beetlejuice 2 as well. They've got like Winona Ryder as well. That's probably gonna be a really good movie. Jenna Ortega seems like a natural, supplement to Winona Ryder's character. Yeah, no, that's probably gonna be pretty good. I don't know about all reboots, but this one is shaping up. Okay, finally, let's see, Wonder Women continuing membership on YouTube. Thank you for that. It doesn't say how many months for some reason, but I appreciate it. And James Thompson over on YouTube gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for that. By the way, some people are saying that they've been unsubscribed from the channel. Apologies. Always feel free to check. Welcome back, everyone. We've got more to talk about. We're going to be talking about Texas, actually, starting with this.
I got a few more questions because you're giving us a lot of time. Thank you. Would you use force against Texas if they tried to secede over the border issue? Because I remember in 2010 you said U.S. states should have the right to secede. Do you still believe that?
I believe in states' rights. Okay. I believe that everything should be as close to the people to decide. Mm-hmm. We know that's not going to happen. If Biden's saying, no, cut that fence, I mean, a state has the ability to do these things because states' rights do matter.
No, Nikki Haley is actually dead wrong. They don't have that right. That's what that whole Supreme Court decision was about. See, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, not as everyone is entitled for their opinions to be law. So like you say they have the right, the Supreme Court says they don't. Unfortunately, they win, Nikki Haley. That's just kind of the way that it goes. But Nikki Haley is wrong about far more and more significant than just that. Watch this.
Would you use force against Texas if they ever try to secede?
Use force against them?
Yeah.
No, we don't ever use force against our own Americans.
Okay. I guess I don't mean like military or anything like that. I'm just talking about like, would you be strong against them doing that?
I mean, I think, states are going to make decisions, but let's talk about what's reality.
Mm-hmm.
Texas isn't going to secede. I mean, that's not something that they're going to do.
So why did you say you believe in that in 2010?
What was the context of it?
I think you said you believe that states have the right to secede. That's what you said.
Do you believe that the states of the United States have the right to secede from the Union?
I think that they do. I mean, the Constitution says that.
I think states have the right to make the decisions that their people want to make. If Texas decides they want to do that, they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
No, they can't. Again, like everybody loves their own opinion. I love my opinions. I love my opinions so much. I have a YouTube page where I just say them all the time. But that doesn't make my opinion law, and yours isn't either. They don't actually have that right. And again, the Supreme Court has directly weighed in on this. Back in Texas v. White, they held that states cannot secede from the union by an act of the state. That's not how it works. More recently, in 2006, Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court, remember how much they loved him, stated if there was any constitutional issue resolved by the Civil War, it is that there is no right to secede. And the majority wrote, the Constitution in all its provisions looks to an indestructible union composed of indestructible states. When Texas became one of the United States, she entered into an indissoluble relationship. That's the Supreme Court. If you want to change that, feel free to amend the Constitution. But Texas does not get to just have a hissy fit and secede from the union because they want to put up concertina wire. I also have one point that was on the Breakfast Club, obviously. When he says, would you use force? And then he says, well, I don't mean the military. Well, what do you mean then? Like, that's what force is. Now, I understand you don't want to seem like you're calling for it and that nobody thinks that he is, but that's definitely what that means. And theoretically, seceding, which just means effectively like trying to break your compact with the Constitution, would probably necessitate some sort of conflict because again, you can't just do that. Now, Yaz, you live in Texas, which could potentially become its own state or its own country, I suppose. What do you make of this?
Yeah, so I do live in Texas. As you know, I moved here. I think it was like the year 2000 that I moved here, right? So 23, 24 years ago. That is a thing that people in Texas love to say, right? People love to say, oh, well, Texas is the only state that can secede. We're the only state that was our own country. And that's why it is a point of Texas pride around here. And it is just wrong. It's just not real. And I know this because when I moved to Texas, people kept saying that. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. And then when I got older, when I was in high school or something, I looked it up, and it's so easy to just fact check that one little bit, but it's so anecdotal around here that everyone just assumes that it's real, that it's an actual thing. Nikki Haley is not from Texas. So I don't know where she's getting any of this from. She's from South Carolina. So she's not subject to just hearing it all the time as we are here in Texas. But that court case or that court decision that you cited, Texas v. White, that's been in place since like the Civil War era. I think it was in the 1860s. So it's been around for a while. It's been on the books. It's nothing new. It's not like it just happened last year, So yeah. It's just wrong. That's it.
100%. What she knows, look, we can debate whether she actually knows about that. I mean, she's had like 150 years to read that decision. It doesn't seem like she's gonna get around to it. But what she knows is that as a Republican who wants to become president, she's supposed to imply that states' rights are the most important thing. Wink, wink, I'm not saying anything. Just states' rights are great. And yeah, you can just leave if you want to. By the way, if she became president, do you think she would be cool with states just pulling out? Oh, California, I guess they could just leave, I suppose. New York, New York and I guess Pennsylvania and Connecticut, I suppose, they can just make their own thing. She doesn't actually believe that. She is trying to placate radical right-wingers in her base and with a side order of racism as well. Okay, with that said, we don't have much time and I do want to talk a little bit more about Texas. So whenever we're ready, why don't we jump into this first video?
I'm telling you, it's not all red. I mean, it's going to be a Hispanic candidate, a strong Hispanic candidate. Listen, Rochelle Garza outperformed Bethel by 3 points. I outperformed Bethel by 3 points. I don't play punditry, but I love it. I'm just trying to tell you that hard work ethic, and yes, some identity politics. You need to motivate Hispanic people to go vote. Why else do you think that Cruz, they'll go vote for the president, and he steals a vote. He steals a percentage point because his last name is Cruz. Yeah. You got to be cognizant of these things.
So this video, which has been released, or the audio at least, is dramatic because we have a high-profile Senate race in Texas where we have Ted Cruz, who apparently steals a vote because of his name, and you have some Democrat who's going to go up against him. Now there you had Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez. Colin Alred is considered the front runner in that based on the polling and sort of expectation. But there you have Gutierrez implying that because Colin Alred is not Hispanic, because Colin Alred is black, he will not be able to defeat Ted Cruz based on that. And because obviously Gutierrez right now is not ahead in the polls, he's trying to pump himself up. And this is the way that he's trying to do it. Now, I think a lot of people are potentially gonna have an issue with that. Yaz, I'm interested, you have more familiarity with Texas politics having to do with the fact that you live there, these elections and what's happened. What do you think about the case that he's trying to make there?
I don't know how much merit it has, right? I don't I wouldn't have assumed that Texans are just going to vote for a Hispanic candidate. I wouldn't think that that's the default. I don't think that people are voting for Ted Cruz because he's a Hispanic candidate. I think he just happens to be the Republican candidate that keeps getting pushed forth for us to vote for. And so the people who vote for Republicans are voting for that guy. Roland Gutierrez, he is one of, I think, 8 people who are running to challenge Ted Cruz for the Senate seat in 2024. Ted Cruz, as we all know, he barely won his reelection for this term against Beto O'Rourke. He came dangerously close to winning that election, and he knows it. He's very aware of it. And with Beto, with him running that race, he put in a lot of legwork in a lot of the more rural areas in Texas, a lot of the very typically Republican areas in Texas, and he just talked to people, which was a lot of work that he did. But I think the fact that he came so close to almost beating Ted Cruz was a big, signifier for a lot of people in Texas that, this place is not as red as the congressional map looks, right? So with Ted Cruz, now he's even less popular, I would argue, than he was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. And I think somebody like Colin Alred actually does have a pretty good shot of unseating him. And I say that very, very hesitantly because we've all been burned before so many times. I've been hearing about a purple Texas for the last 20 years since I've lived here. But Colin Alred, he has a lot of money behind him. A lot of that money is coming in from grassroots donors. I think 94% of his donations are under $100. And a lot of Ted Cruz's money is coming in from special political PACs, political committees. So he has a lot of grassroots support. It is very promising, and he does have. I think he has about $10 million on hand right now. He's a former NFL star. He served in the Obama administration in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. He's an attorney. He's a viable candidate.
Yeah. Look, I don't know a lot about the political differences between these two candidates necessarily. As we get closer, I'll learn more, as many people will. But yeah, I understand the frustration. I don't know that this necessarily helps you that this came out. They're not denying it, by the way. I mean, I don't know how they would. I suppose they could say it's AI. That's an easy thing. They're not doing that. I guess to their credit, and sort of doubling down in a message from their campaign manager, which we unfortunately don't have time to cover, but super high profile race. Everybody wants to get rid of Ted Cruz. And so it certainly merits attention, and we will be watching it. That is unfortunately all the time we have for the first hour of the show. More to come in the aftermath, everybody. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. A lot of news to get to, and none more important than our continuing coverage of Beetlejuice 2. So I'm excited for this film, but Yaz thinks that Catherine O'Hara, Michael Keaton, and Winona Ryder should shut up already.
Don't you dare.
And not reboot this classic. So, and to bring the joy of that story to a new generation, why do you hate them so much?
What I was gonna say, John, is that I have just on principle, I don't like these reboots, right? I don't want to see the same movies that I watched in the 90s as a child rebooted 20, 30 years later. But I'm looking at the cast for it right now. And you have Michael Keaton, you have Winona Ryder, who you always want to support Winona, Monica Bellucci, and Willem Dafoe, and of course Catherine O'Hara. This one will be hard for me to abstain from on principle. I might like sneak a peek at.
Well, and remember, it's not a reboot; it's a sequel. Sequels happen.
Yeah.
Not all of the sequels that come out way after the first movie are good necessarily. Top Gun did really well. Nobody talks about the Matrix one anymore for some reason, but I think this one could be good. The cast is certainly very good.
The cast is wonderful. I mean, who's going to argue with that casting? So
100%. Okay, with that said, let's jump into a couple of comments. So some people were attempting to explain what Charlemagne meant about using force that wasn't military force. So Ukami says monetary and other means of force. Force doesn't necessarily mean military force, but I guess it's just my view. I think it means fighting. I think that's what it means. I could be wrong. Maybe that's what he meant to imply. Monetary, political pressure, diplomatic pressure. That's entirely possible. Mayhem Mendez says he means the force. Oh, that makes more sense. This is not the secessionist movement you were looking for. Maybe that's how it would work. I don't know. Anyway, okay, Cabbage Dragon says in a super chat, Texas declared independence and applied for annexation in 1836. And obviously that worked very smoothly for them. So I understand why Haley would say what she says. Anyway, with that said, by the way, did we check on Technauseated? Did Technauseated get one already? Then Technauseated, Blue Apron gift card to you. Send an email to rewards@tyt.com with your handle and they'll get you set up for that comment.
I want to say real quick, so 1836, they applied to secede, I guess. In 1845, I think is when Texas became an official state in the Union. And then in 1868 was when that Supreme Court decision was passed.
I love the history there. You know a lot more about Texas than I do.
I know more about Texas than I thought I did until I just spit dates at you. All right, anyway.
Okay, with that said, let's move from that history lesson to how dumb politics can be, but funny at the same time with this.
If you could, for the speech tonight, if everyone could, please keep their hands above the table. And I know it's date night from some of you, but no inappropriate touching. That includes you, Lauren Boebert. No vaping either.
So that is a GOP representative, Lisa McClain, obviously doing a little bit of roasting of Lauren Boebert and I know many of you probably don't know the reference there. Most people don't know what she's referring to, but it was in reference to an incident caught on tape at a Colorado theater back in September of 2023, in which Lauren Boebert and a date groped each other in plain view. Boebert was widely mocked and condemned over the episode. So look, this is a Republican doing that. I don't know what their relationship is. I don't know if that's fighting words. We know that Marjorie Greene and Lauren Boebert constantly attack each other in the media. Maybe this is an example of that. I will say that what we do know of McClain is that she's an election denier, which is always fun. She thanked Oscar winner, Emmy winner, two-time Olympian George Santos for his service, I guess. She also asked Representative Jamal Bowman not to pull the fire alarm as he did during a House session last year. So that's obviously very funny. McClain, by the way, is the one who introduced the resolution to censure him. So weird that you're making jokes about it since you thought it was so serious back then that you had to censure him. But anyway, she also warned the event organizer to keep an eye on the gold necklaces and silverware because Senator Bob Menendez, who's accused of accepting gold bars as bribes, was there. And he's, quote, got a few legal bills to pay. So Boebert was not the only person she attacked, but this is the most potentially damaging, other than Menendez, but we'll see what happens with him. So do you think this is a fair thing for her to be pointing out, or should people finally move on and give her a pass for the public groping? What do you think?
Yeah, I cover Lauren Boebert a lot on Rebel HQ, and a lot of the times it's not because I want to, it's just because she's always in the news doing things and saying things. I think now, though, after that straw poll where she came in fifth, after she hopped districts to what was supposed to be a more favorable district to win her, or to at least let her keep a seat in Congress, after coming in fifth in that straw poll, I feel like, she's just not a thing anymore that anybody is really focused on or needs to focus on. Also, I'm not a comedian. I think in my TikTok bio, it even says that I'm unfunny. But what bothered me most about that clip was that, like, the delivery was so bad about all of it because, like, if you have to explain your joke, it's just not funny anymore. You didn't have to say Lauren Boebert's name. Everyone
That's
knows who
true.
you were talking about,
Yeah, you're not wrong necessarily. I'm not an expert. I mean, I don't have unfunny in my
I just want to
my
set the right
profile. I have it in the
expectations for
comments.
people.
It says
Yeah.
that, but yeah. So look, I will say, and this is where perhaps I step into the realm of Buzz Killington. It's funny, and I get that Lauren Boebert is such an aggressively awful person that we want to needle her. We want to do that. And in particular, the way that, like, when you're one of those people who's like, did you know that drag people are taking all our kids and they're having, like, when you're telling all those lies and demonizing whole communities, and then you're, going to town on your date in front of everyone, it feels hyper hypocritical. It feels like it's really crystallized in the hypocrisy. So I get that. My inclination at this point is to say, I feel like I'm going to try to move on from it because of all of the terrible things she has done. This is not a terrible thing. It's a hypocritical thing, but nobody's hurt by it. I mean, maybe she was super rough or something, but I don't think anyone was hurt by her doing it. It's a victimless thing. So I am going to try to, in the future, give her a pass on this, and I will focus my attention on the many other ways that she is just the worst. Do you disagree with that? What do you think? Is it fair?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do appreciate the bipartisan roasting that was happening there. So that's nice. But I think that the thing with what's interesting about it is that this is the thing that the Republicans are choosing to distance themselves from. They're saying, no, that's not how we behave. That's so bad and so wrong what she did. We don't want to be associated with that particular behavior. There are so many other things that Republicans say and do publicly, not even behind closed doors, that they're just like, yeah, that's fine. That's part of that. That's our protocol. That's our MO. That's who we are. So that is interesting to me. But yeah, I'm ready to move on from it.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I'll probably forget that I said that tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, by the way, Technauseated did say that they did not have, that they had already received one. So, but thank you for the comment. Either way, I do appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Senator Rubber Skunk has been here for 30 months on Twitch. Much appreciated. Says, I wonder who's lost more money, Elon or Trump. Well, I mean, when you factor in the thing that just came out about the extra pay thing, Trump in his wildest dreams has never had as much money as Elon Musk, just lost in that one thing. But both massive failures in a lot of different ways. With that said, I want to turn to a topic that we have been discussing a lot recently because we are trying and failing to get through to the MAGA world. Take a look at this.
Trump is the only man that can destroy the negative propaganda that has been sworn into this office. Can he be saved with the American people who believe in God's glory? Can we save our nation from the dark cloud that has been put upon our live streams? Yes, believe that the man that can help this nation, the one man that was ridiculed, destroyed as Jesus, Trump, can come back and save the American dream for all and make America great.
Jon Voight, is Trump really like Jesus? Has he struggled like Jesus? Does he care about his fellow man like Jesus? Is he devout like you appear to be? I will remind you that Donald Trump is the guy who caused us to initiate at the Damage Report a standing challenge for him to just go and pray at a church and be photographed doing it. That's the whole challenge. And he has not yet been able to accomplish it. That's why you have to send out fake AI images like this of him praying, because there's no real ones for you to use. He cares so little about your religion and about your God and about your Jesus that he won't even fake it for a photo shoot. And on top of that, like, did you forget all of these little tidbits?
I hear this is a major theme right here, but 2 Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game. Where the Spirit of the Lord.
An Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible, the whole Bible is an incredible. I joke very much so. They always hold up The Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time.
This should be so no, look, some of those are unfair. When he talks about 3:17, the whole ball game, I am a biblical scholar, so I know what he's referencing there. It says in 3:17, and the Lord createth the outfield, and it was good. No, he doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know. I don't know what it means, by the way. You know why I and Donald Trump don't know what's in 3:17? Because we're both atheists. That's why. I at least will tell it like it is and say that that's what I am because I see no shame in it. He is lying to you. And much more importantly than that, he's doing a really, really bad job of it because he doesn't have enough respect for you to lie better about the fact that he's only pretending to share the same quote unquote values as you. That doesn't bother you, Jon Voight. It doesn't bother you, MAGA world, for some reason, but it's the truth, okay? And he's just gonna continue to make a mockery of what you believe every time he's asked about this. Yaz, what do you think about this? You're in, a Bible-loving territory.
I am, yes, I am. So that verse, 2 Corinthians 3:17, it's about freedom. The Spirit of the Lord is freedom, right? So that's what he's trying. He's like, that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole ball game, right? So there's a lot going on here. Jon Voight, his own daughter doesn't talk to him, and his own daughter is actually doing a lot of humanitarian work, or she's trying to, right? She's trying her best to actually help people and do some good in the world.
That's Angelina Jolie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever you feel about her, at least she's doing something, right? She's doing some kind of work. And then you have this guy, and how is Jon Voight even going to pretend to be in touch with the American people, right? He's been a celebrity for so long. He's a much older man. He's been a celebrity for most of his life. And he has very fraught relationships with the people in his life. And that's just what we know publicly. And now he's coming out saying all these things about Trump. And what's funny about all of this is I just, in the video that I recorded this morning, I said, the Trump MAGA people, his supporters, they literally liken him to Jesus. And now we're covering this story here. So I stand, that I said what I said.
Yeah, 100%. And look, we know that it works. Take a look at this chart. It's a breakdown of how often people, but this is back in 2020, attend religious services and who they're voting for. And those who attend religious services monthly or more often, for the evangelicals at least, they are overwhelmingly going to support Donald Trump. Now, I know what you're saying. They're going to overwhelmingly support any Republican, and that's true, but that's also kind of just another way of describing the problem. Mm-hmm. You say that your politics are driven by the most deeply held of beliefs. And yet the guy that you're supporting has made a mockery of every one of your commandments. He does not care about your holy book. He doesn't care about your prophets. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He doesn't even care enough to fake it.
But of course, that's not necessarily, like in this case with Jon Voight, he is saying that Trump is Jesus, or is like Jesus at least, right? But a lot of people, what they would argue is that whether or not he actually believes in things, he's still helping to push forth their Christian evangelical agenda. And so that's why they vote for him. And it doesn't matter to them whether or not he is the imperfect vessel. And that's what they say to make themselves feel better about voting for a guy who says and does very, very, very un-Christian-like things. Yeah. So it's all just mental mind games. It is hypocritical for a lot of people. Jon Voight here specifically feels very hypocritical to me. But I remember the last time I was in a church, it was somebody invited me for Christmas and I just went just to go. And I was like, oh God, never again, because I'm looking around the room. And first of all, there was so much money in this place because they don't pay taxes. But then on top of that, I was like, I'm in a room full of Trump supporters right now. And it was very uncomfortable. Yeah. So
the argument that you made about how he's an imperfect vessel, so it doesn't matter if he's, committing adultery and stuff like that. I get it. That is what I think they would either say or think without saying. And what is more important, as you say, is that he gives them what they as Christians need. But that is actually a description of the much bigger problem. It would be bad if you just chose this flawed vessel and were not bothered by the fact that he doesn't believe anything of what you say. What is far worse is that you will choose him, and what he gives you is what you have allowed yourself to be convinced is what the Bible demands of you. And that is a bigger thing than just Donald Trump. That's an indictment of the entire right, that you believe that a guy who wants to, like, oh yeah, no, he's a bad guy, but he'll put the alligators on the border and they'll kill the migrants and that's good. You know, that you think that that's what your Bible demands of you, or that that's what Jesus would want, that would want a nationwide shaming and vilification of those literally without shelter, that you would want a government that thinks that people shouldn't have access to health care. The fact that you support Donald Trump, that's a problem of one man and one time, and you'll get past that. Inevitably, his predisposition towards eating McDonald's is gonna wrap that up for you in the next few years. Now, the bigger problem is that your values have been turned on their head and you haven't even realized that it's happened, okay? And if I believed what you believed, I would probably think this isn't an issue of him being a flawed vessel or the right being a flawed vessel. There's definitely some anti-Christy stuff going on right here, that they've managed to turn you, good people, into dark mirrors of what your Bible obviously demands.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
didn't it come out that there were instances in some rural churches where the pastor was just literally quoting the words of Jesus, and then the people in the congregation were asking him where did he come up with all these woke talking points? And he's like, it's Jesus, you know. So Jesus is literally too liberal for the conservative evangelicals who claim him and use him and the religion of Christianity as their justification for doing everything that it is that they do. Most of us here watching this program are already very critical of, organized religion, specifically Christianity, and the evangelicals and what they're trying to do to our national government here in the United States. So I think we're ironically preaching to the choir here a little bit, but it is, thank you. But it is interesting because we're seeing them trying to grapple with the things that they say and do and the things that they say they want versus what they actually want, and the things that the ways in which they actually live their lives and the values that they actually do hold.
Yeah. It's funny that you made so many jokes, because it says in your profile that you're unfunny. It's weird.
I'm very unfunny. Yes.
You should update your profile.
I think I'm funny, so I make jokes for myself. And if other people laugh, then that's nice.
That's exactly why I make every joke that I make. And I would finally say we are critical of some established religion. We were giving credit to that Ohio guy who was using his church to shelter the unhoused. Like, there are actual values that you could ground in your religion that we would 100% get down on, and that, by the way, would be supported and buttressed by the actual text. So
yeah.
Anyway, we need to get to one more thing. I want to give credit to Michael Shore, who's been around at TYT forever, has been doing great work over the last couple of years. Michael Shore has gone to so many Trump rallies. He also went to New Hampshire and conducted some amazing interviews. And I want to occasionally touch base with some of this. So I want to start with Michael Shore talked to this man who is not only a Christian, but also a missionary. And you're gonna feel a little bit of that flavor in the video we're gonna show you, but it goes to some perhaps unexpected and dark places.
People like, Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, who's supposedly a Muslim, but all she does is vote in favor of Democratic legislature that is antithetical to biblical values. You have individuals like them that are definitely opposed and have an agenda to destroy Christian liberty, freedom, and the church. And they're doing that. And you know what? They do it through the Church of Satan, which is a public school system. The Second Amendment is in place for us to take up arms against a tyrannical government. It's a protection for that. And listen, are we going to fight the government with a tyrannical government with handguns or machine guns? Whatever this is, if the government is tyrannical and goes unconstitutional and goes against our founding documents and becomes a Marxist state, that Second Amendment is for we the people.
I hope for this individual's sake that that hopefully he will be able to get through the rest of his life without ever acting on what seems to be a brewing desire for conflict with the federal government, because I have news for him. Whether you go up against the US military with a handgun or a machine gun, you're gonna die. They're gonna kill you in either case. You're not gonna be able to take down the Marines with your machine gun, okay? Because they've got machine guns and they've got bigger stuff than machine guns. But anyway, I don't even know how we got to this point, that we have to talk about potentially fighting the federal government, using it against the enemies that he identified. Ilhan Omar, I suppose, is one of the people that he thinks of when he thinks about tyrannical government and having to shoot people. Since the start of that was, all of this is grounded in Christianity. All of this is grounded in religious values. Not just what he believes, but also what he believes the other side believes. He thinks that Ilhan Omar is doing this because she's a Muslim, but also a part of the Church of Satan. I think those are different organizations. Look, all of this serves, like, this individual is not super important, but what it represents is ideologies, worldviews, ways of thinking can be great in the abstract. But once they're filtered through the human brain, which is a flawed thing, they can go in all sorts of self-destructive directions. And this is the sort of way of thinking that we need to be on the watch for, and potentially an individual that maybe some people should watch out for. What do you think, Yas?
Oh my God, I don't even know what to think. That was so many words that came out of his mouth, and none of them actually make any sense together. He said Ilhan Omar is supposedly a Muslim. She's a Muslim. Ilhan Omar is a Muslim. Like, we know this. She talks about it, right? That's documented. She's not supposedly anything. And it's unbiblical. I started taking notes about the things that he was saying. We the people, the satanic church, machine guns, tyrannical governments. It's just too much. And I feel like his brain is trying to smush all these things together because he's afraid of something, but he doesn't really seem to know what. I guess he's afraid of Satan, and he's saying it's really weird because, I mean, on a serious note, you have people who really do have these very strongly held beliefs, but they're irrational. And this guy really just epitomizes that. He just showed everyone how irrational it all is, because if you say them out loud to any other person who's not in this weird, like, QAnon whatever bubble, it sounds like nonsense, and it probably is, And even the things that he was saying, it seems like he doesn't have a good grasp on what is constitutional. He doesn't understand that Ilhan Omar is a Muslim, and that's totally fine in this country because we have religious freedom, and it's totally fine that she is serving in Congress. He also seems confused that she is a Democrat because it's unbiblical, or I don't even remember what he said. Something about it's unchristian for her to be voting for democracy, even though she's a Muslim, something like that, he said. And it's weird because so many people are afraid of things like Muslims when they really don't have any understanding of Muslim people or the religion itself, right? Yep. And people try to pinpoint or cherry pick things that scare them about different groups of people or different religious groups and things like that, but they really don't have an understanding of people. And what we're seeing in this country a lot, and maybe some of it has to do with social media, is that people are really just being categorized and put into boxes, and these boxes are very, very small. There is no nuance, there is no understanding of individuals, there is no understanding of entire groups of people, and we don't understand each other in this country. And then I guess you get people like this guy.
Yeah. Look, he's enthusiastic. I'll give him that, and it can be hard sometimes when you're put on the spot and cameras, put in your face. That said, he's a caucus captain and a missionary, so he's kind of taken a communications sort of job for himself. But again, none of these individual people are super important. Like, I'm not going to get down on what an individual person says. It's what they represent and the factions of parties that they represent. And we need to know that this is going on. So thank you to Michael Shore and other reporters for making sure that we are aware of it. With that said, we are unfortunately way out of time. Guys, it is always a pleasure to have you here. Hang in there in Texas. It's wild times, but thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Where can you find me? You can follow me on Instagram. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you.
I was going to.
You can find me on Instagram at Yaz, KYAZZZZZK. And then also you can find all my work on Rebel HQ. I post there 4 times a week. And also my podcast is called Modern Context. You can get it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. I missed an episode 2 weeks ago because I was sick, but I have a new episode coming out tomorrow.
Awesome.
Talking about
Everybody
Ecuador.
Go check that out.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
About Ecuador, awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Glad to have you here. For everyone out there, thank you for joining us today. Tomorrow, Brett Ehrlich will be back. We'll be throwing away our garbage people of the week, and you have an opportunity to vote for the community garbage person of the week by going to youtube.com/The Damage Report and going to the community tab. It is the last bastion of true democracy in America, so have your vote be counted. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.